Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this discussion today. And thank you for the great audience who's still patiently sitting here on a Saturday evening. We will make it real quick, and we promise that this discussion will be very exciting and informative. We have spent the last 2 days talking a lot about artificial intelligence, including AI infrastructure, compute, funding, India's AI mission, talk about AI and cybersecurity, and India's role in leading this space. But I think one thread of conversation that's still missing from the various conversations we have had over the last 2 days is about AI and sustainability, which is why we have this panel towards the end of our Global Technology Summit, just tying all the things together. So we just heard our previous panel talk about priorities for India's upcoming AI Summit. I think it would be good to discuss how sustainability features into that. But why is this discussion important at this point in time? It's because as artificial intelligence rapidly transforms industries, economies, and societies, it also brings with it a less critical dimension, its environmental footprint. From the energy consumed in training large language models to the carbon-intensive infrastructure powering AI systems, sustainability must become a core principle in the way we innovate, govern, and scale AI. This session and the way it's going to be designed will be split into 2 halves, where the first half of the conversation will talk about how do you make AI innovations, AI applications more sustainable, but the other half of the discussion will also talk about how do you actually leverage AI for sustainability. With that, we are joined here today by Mr. Mahavir Singhvi, who will offer a more global policy perspective on how India can lead the sustainability conversations on AI. Vikas from SAP to explore the private sector's role in balancing innovation with our climate responsibility. Urmi with insights from Salesforce pioneering work on sustainable AI and how AI is already being used to support climate resilience on ground. And last but not the least, Srinivas Varadarajan to help us understand the technical and infrastructure level shifts like green cloud, edge computing, terms that I also need to know and learn a lot about. But with that, Urmi, let me start with you. The definition for responsible AI, also we heard this term during the last panel as Shalini wrapped up the last session. The definition for responsible AI is now evolving to also include sustainability, emphasizing not just ethical and fair use, but also energy efficient and environmentally conscious development. Salesforce has been one of the few companies to roll out sustainable AI policy principles. Could you share insights on how your company is measuring and addressing the carbon footprint of its AI services?
Thank you, Shruti, and a very important conversation. I think the idea of encompassing sustainability into the definition of responsible AI comes from the inevitable truth about climate change. I think the statistics are quite self-explanatory. Data centers consume about 1.5% of power generation today, and by 2030 it's said to be 4.5, and some statistics even pose it to be much higher than that. And I think the risk that we end up running if the energy consumption compounds at this stage is a high level of inequality that might occur because of the kind of consumption and the dispersion of energy consumption around the globe. We've been on this sustainability journey for a decade now, and we really recognize that sustainability is one of our core values, along with innovation, along with customer success. And the way we really see climate change and addressing climate mitigation is through a multi-pronged approach, because addressing it is ultimately a multifaceted arena. So One of the ways we do this is by offsetting our own carbon footprint. So that could be in terms of buying carbon credits. It could be in terms of buying renewable energy certificates to offset the energy that our AI models use to train. And the other is, supporting ecopreneurs, people who are working at the very forefront of climate change, and to give them the tools like Agentforce and supporting through philanthropy to kind of help them to reach, to get the reach that they otherwise would not have done. And the other is through regulation and policy. So this is where the sustainable AI principles come in. This is where we try to engage with governments, to work with them, and in order to incorporate sustainability into policy frameworks themselves. And one of the ways we do that is by measuring impact. At the Paris summit, we unveiled the AI energy score. So this was a way of measuring power consumption, a benchmarking way of measuring power consumption of AI models. So, we've declared that we will be we will have full disclosure under this model, so we will be disclosing our exact carbon footprint through this. So how it works is that there is a portal where developers can submit their AI models, and there is a benchmarking tool which then scores these AI models according to some very basic AI tasks like text generation, how much energy consumption is being used in text generation or image generation or summarization. And then the idea is to kind of come up with like an energy star for white goods, to have like an energy label for AI models. And of course, the key to success of any kind of standardization is adoption. And, and companies or governments kind of aligning on full disclosure. This is still something that is very close to us and we push for. And the idea behind all of this is that, if we're not thoughtful about our actions at this stage in terms of incorporating sustainability into the very design of AI models, it might be too late in the future to remedy this.
If I can push you a little bit more on this, where do you see the sustainability conversation going in the next 5 years?
I think there's a consciousness, especially among businesses, because there's a huge responsibility on big businesses because of their outreach, their access to capital, to do more in this space. It also is something that even makes business sense if you're able to see a long-term vision. So this is something that it drives customer success, it brings customers, in the long run it contributes to revenue. And it's just about popularizing that vision amongst companies and pushing all stakeholders to do this. I think otherwise the inevitability of what we're facing will be quite stark.
Great. I think it's a good segue for me to bring in Srinivas into the conversation. So Urmi did mention something about data centers taking a lot of energy consumption. She also mentioned how big businesses are thinking about measuring sustainability and how they're thinking about all the sustainability efforts more consciously. You've been part of Vigyan Labs, which is transitioning to like green data centers, or you're adopting newer and innovative ways to make AI innovation more sustainable. We have heard things like edge computing and the way it actually works to improve AI applications and make them more sustainable. So could you just unpack the term maybe edge computing for our audience, and also talk about why is it just the big businesses and why, and how do you even get the smaller businesses to think about sustainability from the very beginning?
Yeah, just to go back a little in time, because when I just started designing Aadhaar, the whole infrastructure, right? It opened my eyes that IT infrastructure could be a massive guzzler of energy. So when I wrote the specs, I wanted a PUE of 1.2. All the vendors said, everybody in the world said it is impossible, right? And I spent some research of Aadhaar is over. It's a big problem. Nobody in the world had solved. Why can't we solve it, right? I saw that, I think last decade back, we saw that energy is going to be a big guzzler in the future data center world, AI world. And we were one of the pioneers who used AI to actually solve the energy problems we started. And coming to Salesforce, right? I have some connection, deep connection with you guys. I built the first agentic AI and met Mrs. Arundhati at the time. I told her I can save 30 gigawatts of energy for you. And next few weeks, I got a call from her saying that, how can you help SBI? I think within 3 months, we went live. Till date, we have saved 100 gigawatt hours of energy for State Bank of India. That's what she saw the future sustainability. I think that was a big first point for us. That's where our sustainability energy started with Mrs. Arundhati at State Bank of India. And then we continued that journey to innovate continuously because we saw that, digital infrastructure globally, it's not just data center, endpoint computing, the endpoints, the smartphones, the towers, together consume 6 to 7% of energy today, which will probably become 10 to 12% in the next 4-5 years. We started applying AI long back because turning off a light is easy. Turning off a computing resource is not easy, a lot more complex. So we had to use, today we have agentic AI running about 5 million machines in the world, probably the biggest footprint of our AI running in the world today. And the impact we have made is we have saved about 2 terawatt hours of energy just by using AI globally. And our research continued as we started saving. Customers came to us like SBI, can you save more, can you do more? And been continuously researching. And globally we look at, you look at the SDG goals, right? What are things? Land is a common issue. Water is the issue. Energy is issue, right? Because still energy, today still large amount of energy is coal and oil. Energy is still a small percentage. So started looking at all these things, and after other, he started working on building data centers around the world for many countries, Philippines, Morocco, every country we went around. We started challenge. Getting land is a problem. Getting energy is a problem. Water was always a scarce resource. And sometime in just before COVID, I thought, while we are innovating in AI, why can't we create a model data center in the world, which is completely run on solar? My goal was not to use water, run at a PU 1.2, cut down the energy consumption drastically. And we said, let's create a modular edge small data center, micro data center. We pioneered the concept of micro data center. We can make the footprint very, very small. It can run a massively workload. We did it, just a couple of years back. We built a green building, earthquake-proof building. We redesigned. I'm not a civil engineer, but learned everything. We built a building with 70% less cement. Use special construction material. The building is naturally cooled by 6 degrees centigrade, which reduces energy consumption by 30%. We removed all switches in the building, only sensors and AI. And we removed false roofings. Pretty much we eliminated, okay? Today, just to give an example, how much energy we have reduced, my goal was clearly not to consume more than what you can produce. We have a 60 kVA solar panel, rooftop building. How do you redesign everything so that you don't consume more than what you produce? On a sunny day in India, typically on a 60 kVA panel, you can produce about 300 to 350 kilowatt hours of energy. So we had to redesign everything, redesign the electrical panel, UPS, bus bars, everything in the system we had to redesign, including the servers part of it. Today, I'll just tell you, give a number, we do about 6 to 7 billion messages a day, month, slightly less than UPI. We have 5 petaflops of GPU, few hundred terabytes of RAM, then 10,000 plus virtual machines running. The total energy consumption is just 15 kilowatts. And our goal is that as AI, and we have demonstrated that you can actually build a sustainable edge data center. Because the world is distributed, and country, I think, we talk about distributed energy, that when energy is distributed, why can't compute be distributed? And what you need is just a small piece of land. Sunlight is plenty in this country. You don't need water. And we create a model, say that we can create hundreds and thousands of distributed edge computing. It's highly sustainable. You don't need grid at all. You don't need water. Go into a place where there's a barren land, nothing grows. And that's what I see, where we can look at how do we replicate this around the world, make the AI highly, because we use AI. We are probably one of the pioneers. We use AI for everything, the electrical systems, the panels, the chillers, servers, every component has AI, agentic AI running. Because manually it's not possible to, do what we talk sustainability is humanly impossible to do controls. I think you need a control system which is AI.
What does it take to maybe include sustainability into any AI conversation or any AI innovation that happens in India? So how do you kind of integrate sustainability?
I think we need
into
to have
the value
metrics,
chain?
right? Metrics like metrics, right? You know, how many, example, I use the metric, how many watts per token, right? Example, we just built a chat GPT like, one using the open source AI tool. We just, any of you can look at Mysore.ai with a low-end GPUs. We run it, the whole Mysore.ai LLMs run with less than 1 kV of power. And we started to put a metric, like one is PUE, mandate PUE, I think 1.2 is achievable. Mandate industry, the government mandates 1.2 PUE, reduce the water consumption, and let everybody benchmark by watts per token, right? I think we are able to do, I think, almost less than a milliwatt per token and keep reducing, right? And I think everybody is mandated to declare the carbon footprint of their AI infrastructure and benchmark, right? Watts per token, how many watts per token, then I think it will set the precedent for you.
Got it. Let me come to Mr. Singhvi. So we've just heard the two big players in the industry talk about AI and sustainability. Um, Given your expertise and also your, since you're heading the next division here, can India lead the global conversations on making AI more sustainable without compromising innovation and inclusivity?
Thank you, Shruti. Let me first thank you and Carnegie and Rudra for inviting me here in this interesting conversation on AI and sustainability. I think sustainability is important, very important. And in fact, what I feel is that you should have kept it earlier, because we should have talked sustainability first and the rest of the things should come later. But anyway, now we are talking
Sir,
about
I thought
it, and that's
people
very
would
important.
talk about sustainability
So,
naturally.
so I think it's very important in a way to have sustainable AI because as being pointed out by both the previous speakers, that AI is highly energy intensive in terms of power consumption. There are other resources like water, land, all these things are required. How do you make the optimal utilization of these resources so that we can make it really sustainable is the question. Now, before I go to how India can do it, whether India can do it, can India lead the conversation on sustainability in AI, I would like to give some facts. Perhaps most of you are aware of that, but just for your information, I was just going through a report by Goldman Sachs, and he said that a chat GPT query needs nearly 10 times more as much electricity to process as a Google search. So you can imagine the kind of power consumption which goes into just having a search on the or creating some sort of an answer on using your artificial intelligence platform. Similarly, I think there is another data which says that training ChatGPT took 14 weeks and around 42 gigawatt hours of electric power. And that's the equivalent to a Delhi electricity consumption of around 28,500 households in the developed world, or about 70,000 households in the poorer countries. And there is another statistics which says that to generate a 6-second video clip on an AI model, it requires 8 times more electricity than it takes to charge a mobile phone, or nearly twice that needed to charge a laptop. So all these facts, it points out the kind of intensity of energy which is required to run AI models. And therefore, it's very important to talk about sustainability in AI. AI, as you know, can solve a lot of problems pertaining to climate change or the energy efficiency and so on, but at the same time, it itself is an energy guzzler. So we need to strike a balance. Now, coming to your question, can India lead the conversation on AI? I think there are some distinct strengths which we have, and I think we have already shown that to the world, and we have been talking about it for quite a long time. And these, I would say there are 3 strengths particularly. One is the scale. the second is innovation, and third, I would say, is our moral choice or the moral compass which we have. So let me explain all these things. When we talk about scale, we have 1.4 billion people. That is one of the largest, and digitally trained population which we have in our country. And we just don't consume the technology. We also test it. And we have shown it while, having technologies, platforms as DPI or Aadhaar or UPI or CoWIN. And all these, case studies have shown that how digital infrastructure can be inclusive, efficient, and at the same time sustainable. I think we can apply the same principles to AI. We can have a modular, low resource, open access platforms. That's where I think the sustainability would come in. So I think these are something we need to look at. So India has already shown the way forward, and we can certainly, lead the conversation on these aspects to have AI more, sustainable. These are the models which we can look at to provide guidance to us how we can go forward on this. Second is the innovation. I think you just spoke about how India is very apt in, and I think has provided a lot of frugal innovations, using low resources, using less power and less energy. All these things are very important when we talk about this innovation. And these are, I think, very important because we need to have, kind of deep seeking movement. Yesterday there was a lot of conversation on this. So I think these are certain things which perhaps give us some kind of a strength. We have a lot of startups which are working in this direction, and therefore I think we can provide, sustainable model to develop AI as we go forward. Third is what I call is the India's moral compass and the moral choice which we have, and the principles of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or even the life, the mission, lifestyle, the Prime Minister's vision of the life mission. I think that's also again provide a kind of guidance to us as we go forward on this. We can push for ethical frameworks, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and at the same time environmental responsibility. So responsibility, when we talk about responsible AI, I think environmental sustainability is inbuilt in that. So those are the things I think we can certainly talk about when we, look at leading conversations on AI. And if you look at the Paris AI Summit, the Prime Minister in his speech talked about making AI sustainable as we go forward. So I think we are already taking a lead on this. We have been talking about this at the various forums. We have been taking leads in the various kind of platforms globally, even G20, or in the Global Partnership on AI, the AI Action Summit. And I'm sure that in the going forward, when we host the summit, sustainability would be an important issue, particularly on AI. So that's, I think we are well positioned to lead conversation on sustainable AI in future.
Thank you so much, sir. And I think this is a good segue for me to get Vikas into the conversation to address some of the business AI applications. So I think Mr. Singhvi did point out, how AI applications are consuming a lot of energy. We have heard about data centers, how they're consuming a lot of energy. So because addressing this energy consumption challenges of AI, especially for business applications, it requires innovation, something which we also heard Srinivas talk about, but also adaptation and collaboration across government, academia, researchers, policymakers, industry, and the customers, right? My question to you would be how, because you're representing SAP, first question would be, how do you think the private sector can actually balance AI innovation and sustainability? And how do you interact with different stakeholders across the value chain to kind of enhance awareness around sustainability? And the reason I ask this question is India has put out a call to develop their own LLMs, right? So if we are actually in the beginning of that innovation curve, how do we make sure that we start building sustainable solutions from the very beginning?
Thank you. Thank you, Shruti, once again. Thank you, Carnegie, for this opportunity.
If you can just put your mic.
Yeah. So thank you, Shruti, thank you, Carnegie, for this opportunity. So I'll take a cue from what Urmi started off, what Mr. Srinivas said, and what Joint Secretary Mr. Singhvi talked about. Uh, so for now, actually, sustainability is no longer a fad or a trend word, basically. I mean, it's a global force that all of us are, it's a reality that all of us are living it day in, day out. Businesses can't be, siloed or kind of be separate from this particular thought process. I mean, if you take the case of SAP, I mean, what Urmi just talked about, I mean, Salesforce, anybody else also, at least with the larger companies, I mean, let me assure you that for SAP, it's sustainability by design. It's an inbuilt process. I mean, there can't be anything that we do which is not sustainable, because as large companies, we do understand that whatever impact we create today is going to impact our business tomorrow, and we can't be ignorant of that particular fact. So it's a sustainable. And second is that what Mr. Singhvi said, what Srinivas said, is that, the same AI that we are today debating about its footprint is also the same AI which is helping you reduce those footprints. So that balance also will have to be there. So if I take you back a little bit into the technological history, I mean, it's almost, if you look at the history of chips for that matter. I mean, how from large it came down, and today we are at, where we are now talking about GPUs and NVIDIA and everybody. I foresee something similar happening in this particular area also. The AI today, which may be looking like not a very green thing to do, will be the same AI which will train us to become more green tomorrow. I mean, as a proponent of technology, I definitely am confident about that. So having said that, I said that you touched upon a very good point, Shruti, So at the core of everything, you should always remember that digital and sustainability has a very strategic linkage. I mean, you cannot talk about sustainability without bringing in a digital element onto that. Typical thing being, unless you know how are you going to improve, that insight actually comes in from the data that you have. AI cleans that data and does that insight generation much more faster, which then takes you to the whole, the output of actually taking a decision, which is not just, bottom line oriented in finance terms, but also how much in green terms. Thankfully, research after research is now showing that being sustainable is actually a better financial decision also. I mean, so that part I'm just not going into that, but to reach that particular position, it is important that you collect the data, you crunch that data, and you get those insights that you're asking for, and AI actually does that. Coming back to company-specific, Shruti, so what we do is obviously, I mean, there are some low-hanging ones, which Srinivas talked about, how as a country we can do, or going in for renewable energy to run our data centers. What Urmi talked about, wherever we feel that we have not been able to meet those, balancing footprint, we actually go out and buy the certificates. So that, I mean, that's an option which is available in the market today. So we exercise that option wherever we want to do that. So those are the low-hanging ones. Typically from an operational perspective, things which are very, very simple, and which Srini, probably you'd like it, in a large company like SAP, we have already started monitoring, using the non-peak hours, those kind of things. So small things which add to that. End of the day, Shruti, I would like to really put this forth, a very basic fundamental. End of the day, energy is a cost for me, mind you. I am obliged to reduce that cost in case I want to do, a good job as far as my market capturing is concerned. One. Number two, the same data that we are generating. So already we are creating internal benchmarks, the way Urumi talked about. Internal benchmarks are being created as to how much of LLM, how much of energy, how should you really run that through to get the output. We are also calculating what is the net impact of creating that, running on that LLM output. Customer, what you talked about, very important, because when we actually deploy an SAP solution which has an embedded AI into that, we are actually calculating the usage of the customer also. So we are knowing that by producing something at X level of energy, usage was not, let's say, was only 50%, probably I need to rethink that data did I do a good job by spending X amount of energy to do something which was not utilized? So that capturing we are already doing, and retraining, always constantly retraining our model. So those are the kind of things that we are doing. Even at the customer end, we are actually, I mean, for us, which I'll come to probably the second part, I mean, we are now really propagating solutions which are, which we call the, green ledger or the SAP sustainability tower solutions and everything, which we are helping, showing. And these are not just solutions which are into plant side, manufacturing side. We have solutions for CFO, how a CFO can be more green. We have solutions for a CHRO. How can a CHRO in his decision making be more green? How can the procurement team be more green in their solutions? And all those are actually embedded. So so coming back to your question, I mean, what we do, we are obviously tracking data centers that we have direct control on the energy consumption over there. We are tracking that and trying to improve that. Data centers which are not mine, we are very heavily dependent on hyperscalers. We are actually getting the data from them as well. So anything that we report has a scope 3 emission reporting inbuilt into that. So to that extent, we are even controlling that. Customer data also we are getting it. So we are trying to cover the entire value chain to figure out where the footprints lie and how we can improve that.
This is really helpful, and I think just going back to what Urmi said and just what you said now, the key takeaway that I'm taking from this conversation, that it is easier, and I think the bigger companies have kind of, they are more aware of these sustainability issues. But as India is growing its AI innovation landscape, there will be some small and medium enterprises which will develop some foundational models, which will be developing more AI applications. How do you make sure that you involve those small and medium enterprises into this? And do you foresee any challenges for them? Because the way big businesses or big companies are, they're very structured, they have bigger teams, but not as many for the startups. So do you have like any advice or anything for startups that are in this space?
So one is that benchmarks are getting constantly created. Anybody who's doing that, I mean, obviously, thankfully, most of the compute is with Government of India. I mean, for those kind of people who are not really in a position to afford. So we are in a very healthy situation where the government being conscious of the sustainability and the climate goals and the climate, obligations. I'm sure that part will be taken care of at the government level itself. So we really are not leaving it free for all kind of a thing. But second thing is, I would probably go back to Urmi. I would probably, I mean, while the SAP benchmarks are pretty internal at the moment, I'm not saying or putting words in Mr. Singhvi's mouth where we should try and come out with benchmarks and everything over there. But some standards definitely would help over here for people to evaluate themselves. Again, an evolution which I'll go back to is the evolution of the BE star rating the way it happened. I mean, it was not very well accepted in the beginning. It has its own, people were not going for it. People were still going for cheaper options. But over a period of time when people realize the return on investment and the cost benefit analysis of going in for a 5-star at a slightly higher cost vis-a-vis a 3-star or a 2-star, probably that kind of maturity would definitely come in. Hand-holding, definitely yes, you should do it. I mean, because there is a huge involvement of academia, a huge involvement of researchers who, are struggling with their language models. Obviously, for them, it's more important to really come out with that big bang, something wow kind of a moment, not look at sustainability as the first focus. We have to make that into an inbuilt practice. For that, probably a collated approach where the government, benchmarks being created by us, so we can help sit together, create those benchmarks, get the institutions to come down onto that. The data center players themselves have a lot of role to play in ensuring that they have to do. I know for sure, because prior to SAP, I also had a long stint with Lenovo, and we were constantly trying to move away from what Srinivas said, move away from lesser water consumption, move away into more energy efficient, stacks and everything. So those kind of things. So it will have to be a coalition of sorts, really, and not just an India coalition, but a global coalition of sorts, to really create those benchmarks and hope that people are working within those guardrails or parameters where we are doing. So that's my, foresight on this.
No, that's super helpful. Urmi, do you want to come in on any?
No, I completely concur. I mean, as you said, there's this, there's the big businesses which definitely make, they know that this makes revenue sense for them in the long term. They know that this is something that attracts customers for them. As maturity on this issue develops, you're kind of judging your own benefit in terms of energy consumption and what you're saving and cost savings in order to select the model that works for you. And I think with small and medium businesses, they do require a level of support to also, come to the same level as bigger companies. In one of our sustainable AI principles, we have advocated also for financial support. This could be maybe in the form of tax breaks or incentives that actually allow companies to come to the same level. When it comes to using sustainability. Perhaps this is something that they want to do, but it doesn't, long-termism isn't something that is ingrained when you start a business, and it does need a bit of hand-holding there in order to achieve the goals that, that bigger players can do. So I think this is one of the things that perhaps we can discuss further.
Sure.
So just add to that, I mean, there are a couple of researchers here, but I would like to use this platform. What will happen is the market will also, determine this. In our case, my customer, I mean, it's not just giving an AI-based embedded solution. The customer has to then, end of the day, do the ROI at their end also. Is that how much of, hardware requirement, how much of energy consumption is happening at their end to get that benefit that I may have probably gone and sold ahead. So the customer himself or herself is also doing that analysis all the time. The market will also do that analysis, but yes, I mean, whether the startups and the young researchers, when they reach that stage, probably that's a question I don't have an answer at the moment, but probably we can.
No, I totally agree to that, and I think it would also need a lot of awareness among customers to kind of calculate that energy consumption in their end. But Srinivas, let me bring you in back into this conversation. So the general consensus around the panel seems to be that it is not a one-person job. We need to have different stakeholders together to kind of, the government, policy, industry, academia. What is your opinion and how do you envision AI sustainability to be embedded across the AI value chain? We have heard from both Urmi and Vikas, but do you have any other additions?
Yeah, I think sort of concur with them, as a general consensus among the team here. The only one thing I think I change our stance, because India, finally it's kitna milti hai, standard goes up. So we have converted AI to actually in terms of reduction in the cost, operational costs. That number speaks for itself. So when you just talk about cloud or a private cloud, a data center, you talk to customers about reducing your operational expenses, because one of the biggest costs of running a data center, example is IT, is your energy. People don't have metrics. Today, people traditionally in India run at 1.5, 1.6 PUE. When you just show them you can run to 1.2 PUE, you're going to save a huge amount of money. Just to give a thumb rule, right? A capex cost of a data center versus OPEX. In 5 years, your OPEX is equal to capex. So we have been able to cut by capex by almost OPEX by more than 50%. And capex also significantly less because we use a different technique. So cost saving is everybody looks for. I think when you translate your sustainability into a financial metric, and people readily accept that. And that's what I've seen. When you talk to CFOs, I say, I cut your cost by 50%. Nobody says no, right? By the same time, you're sustainable. So I just started using the word profitable sustainability. It's like help your planet, help yourself. And that's a story that seems to work everywhere. Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it, profitable sustainability. But let me come back to you, Mr. Singhvi. So we've just heard the panel talk about collaborative approach. We've heard about profitable sustainability. How, according to you, can policymakers, industry leaders, researchers implement strategies to ensure AI development that aligns with global climate goals?
This is a very, I think, good term which he has used, profitable sustainability. I don't know. But I think that makes sense actually, because at the end of it, everybody has to, win. There should be a win-win situation for everyone. And that's very important, particularly in terms of sustainability. When we talk about how can we align with the climate goals, I think, as all of them have pointed out, for the policymakers, it's important that they provide some guidance, some sort of benchmarks, some sort of, standards or so to follow up by everyone. I think that perhaps may be a guideline to start with, to make, to examine themselves whether they are meeting those or not. And I think that is something very important. I don't want to prescribe here anything, but that's my personal view. I think that standardization at the end of it helps to a great extent in terms of, going forward, particularly on the sustainability aspect. Similarly, I think he talked about greening the data center. And I think if you look at the draft data center policy also, which was framed some time back, that also talked about green data center. And some of the state governments in their data center policy to attract investment, they have mentioned about issues pertaining to sustainability apart from other, the kind of facilities or the incentives they are giving to attract investment for the data centers. I think at the international level, I think there is a need to integrate AI policy into the climate governance also. So whenever we are talking about climate governance, issues at any forum for that matter, I think now AI sustainability should also become a part of that. And that's very important because AI is going to be there forever and as in the near future or in the distant future as I can see it. So I think we need to have some sort of discussions on all these forums where, climate negotiations or climate discussions are happening. So that would give some sort of, kind of attention to this issue of AI sustainability and the sustainable AI as we go forward. We also need to strengthen global cooperation on this. We have been doing it ourselves, and as we, I think perhaps in the previous session also, perhaps Secretary Master told that we would be hosting the next AI summit, and we look at this issue particularly, very closely in that summit, and we'll see that as we go forward, more and more discussions happens on this, and that's very important to bring some sort of, attention to this issue. And this is the responsibility at the end of it for everyone. Everyone should recognize that whenever you are using AI, you are somewhere contributing to the, maybe emissions at some level. So I think you need to be frugal in your approach. You need to be responsible in your approach, how much AI you need to use, so that you can also contribute to the, maybe climate, the challenges which we face. So I think these are some important things we need to keep in mind. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah. I think the upcoming India's AI Impact Summit is a good way to start the benchmark conversation, something that is born out of this conversation as a policy impact, just putting it out there. But I think we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we've talked a lot about how do you make AI innovations more sustainable, but let us talk about how is AI actually helping achieve sustainable development goals. So let me turn to you, Bikas, again. How do you think and what is AI for sustainability, and how can the private sector and government use AI to meet their climate commitments?
Sure. Thank you, Shruti. So, I mean, as Srinivas also pointed out, the same AI has a huge role to play. I'll come back to my first point that I said, that there is this very, very deep strategic linkage between digital and sustainability. So the data that you are collecting at every stage of doing business, right, and from your supplier, from their sub-suppliers, to the whole supply chain, procurement, manufacturing, packaging, logistics, every point you are generating data. And that data that you are capturing is actually capturing the footprint that you are accruing at each and every stage. So basically, in a very simple term in SAP, we call that you record, then you kind of report, and then you take action on basis of that. So CEOs, and as I told you, that sustainability is no longer some kind of a trend. It's actually a global force. Every business is conscious. It is adding to their bottom line. That part is also well established. So So that data which you need to really take that decision to go sustainable or go green or howsoever you want to say that, that can come only, and it's a huge amount of data. You can get that data and use that efficiently to process that data. You need AI. To give the insights out of that data, after that processing, you again need that AI. And the same AI has to constantly keep improving on itself to give you a better insight next time. So that's exactly what's happening on business AI side. That's exactly where SAP solutions, which are already embedded with AI now, are actually throwing open. In our terms, we have something called a green ledger, where we say that the same ERP that is giving you financial data is also giving you green data. We have something called sustainability towers that we call, those are the terms, but probably I'm sure Urmi would have something similar, and Sini does that day in, day out. So that's where it is. I mean, the same AI, and for government also, in governance, I mean, how you're running large citizen-centric programs, you need to constantly crunch that data to improve on that data. So, for example, state of Andhra Pradesh runs on SAP. We have something called Comprehensive Financial Management System. Now, that large data which was lying in silos, guzzling energy, everything has now been coordinated by the state government. And now, at a drop of a hat, if I may compare the Chief Minister as a CEO, every morning he has insights on where his revenue is going to come from, where does his projects lying, and everything. So, and that is actually, so project delays where they are happening, what's happening in the health sector. So there are multiple use cases, as I may say, once you get the data right, clean that data right, apply AI on that data and start getting insights. So it is not just for businesses. I mean we have e-commerce who are using that for their logistics. We have, groceries who are using it to reduce their wastage. It can be multiple. I mean, use cases can be multiple. So definitely has a huge play. It's one of the largest, best doing business arms of SAP also, by the way, in case that is an indication how important businesses are taking this actually.
Great. I think, Urmi, if you would also like to give us a sense of, some use cases of how AI is actually being used for sustainability and to improve sustainability.
Sure. As Vikas said, using, greening AI and using AI for green are sort of two sides of the same coin. There are, lots of interesting use cases where we're trying to use agentic AI in order to deliver real-world solutions. So one is, there's this startup called Good 360, which is using agentics to sort of optimize disaster relief delivery. So it kind of tracks the routes and patterns that all their delivery trucks take in order to deliver foreign aid more efficiently and optimize those traffic routes. So that saves energy, that saves cost. So that's one good example. The other is we're also working with the government of Andhra Pradesh, with Producers Trust, in order to use predictive farming, use agentics for predictive farming. So farming can sometimes be a very unsustainable exercise, lots of data, 70% of water consumption comes from a farming sector. I think 40% of the produce also goes to waste at times. And what we're trying to do is to use agentics to connect buyers to sellers in a more appropriate manner, so there's a greater efficiency. We're trying to deliver instructions in vernacular, and also to align cropping patterns according to the weather, according to local conditions. And you know how agentics works here is that instead of using one LLM across the board, the data is sort of broken up into these smaller packets and then assigned to specific models to accomplish specific tasks. And that's a very energy efficient way of delivering these kind of services instead of using a larger language model to do so and having its energy wastage. And there's also several startups in the space who are really using AI for good. There's, I think it's Fano AI, which is this startup that uses deep learning to predict patterns for wildfires even before they occur. So it's very, in terms of disaster relief delivery as well as disaster prediction, I think these are some of the areas where we can see widespread usage, and these are scalable as well. So something that can be used, that's something that we see, in the US can also be modified to local conditions and local context, and the solution can also be applied to India as well, and maybe from India to different countries as well. So it's a way of kind of connecting the world through AI for good.
That's quite optimistic, and we're left with about 7 to 8 minutes. I would like to bring my audience into this conversation. So if any of you have questions, please raise your hand. Can we have the mic, please? Please introduce yourself and keep your questions brief. We'll take a set of 3 questions maybe at a time.
Hi, I'm Deepak Maheshwari with the Center for Social and Economic Progress. So number one point is that sustainability is way beyond just energy. Energy is important, but energy is not the only thing. So we should look at materials and other stuff also. That's one aspect, which somehow was not discussed today. Second thing is you mentioned about the suggestion for the Impact Summit. So I think there we should talk about impact of and on sustainability, both ways. And the third thing I just wanted to suggest was that while we are talking more from a technology ecosystem perspective right now, it would be nice, perhaps in future or even now, to engage with Ministry of Power or Ministry of Environment, MOEF, CC, etc. So what are their policies talking? Are they talking about using of AI in their respective policies? Because it takes two to tango. Thank you.
Great. Can we just have the mic?
Thank you. My name is Yogendra Kumar, former ambassador. My question is basically, there are 2 questions I have. One is that we also in the previous session heard about the data centers and what kind of a demand they make on the energy requirement, which is huge. Even for the US, one reads about these things, that even they find it very difficult to cope with the rapidly growing demand for this. And we heard also just in this panel about the micro data centers. So I'm wondering, between the 2 of them, micro data center and data centers, I mean, how is the modeling to be developed as far as we are concerned in terms of, scaling up our LLM and all those kind of things that we've been talking about? That is one question. The other question is to Ms. Urmi Tat. And, you talked about the agentic, the predictive farming. And that is linked to, climate change. Now, climate change, as one sees at the moment, actually its localized impacts are highly unpredictable. So what kind of modeling you're developing in a situation which actually, by itself, intrinsically unpredictable? That's what kind of exercise this actually entails. Thank you.
Okay. Can we have the mic, please?
Hello, everyone. Vikrant, this side from EY. So my question to you is regarding that, as Mahavir Singhvi said, sustainable is win-win for all. So the thing is, whatever we are putting it in terms of resource allocation, whether it's coal for energy, whether it's all rare earth mineral for making semiconductors, which is powering AI, and then we supply or fit these semiconductor in data centers, and so much amount of money has been putting into this. So how do you see this trade-off as this now? Is it going to get paid off? One question. And if it is going to pay off, when it is going to be done? Or we just have to wait and see approach. So just to draw an analogy, almost 5 years ago when 5G was being developed, and there are many reports you can see right now in vendor ecosystem that 5G will bring in so much amount of money and all. We are in 2025, we do not see 5G a lot all over the world.
Okay. Would someone like to take the first crack at the first question, the micro data centers and?
Okay, talk about, yeah. 2 things, right? One of the important things, what we try to do micro data center is, okay, look at today is how to minimize the footprint, because what is important for running data center is land. Land, water, and energy. Okay, so our concept of micro data center was to minimize the footprint. Because one of the biggest challenges in data center is about energy and heat. we can, so we try to eliminate, some of these aspects. Micro doesn't mean you cannot run very workloads. See, there are a few cases everybody in the world does not have to run training. Majority will do inferencing, right? Inferencing doesn't require a massive amount of infrastructure. A micro data center, I would say, you can have about 50 to 100 racks. You can do in a quarter acre of land. It's completely solar powered. You don't need water. And as a country as such, India is a high density of population, and we have so much of diversity. Sorry?
Can we do without data centers?
See, we need computing power somewhere. Okay, computing power somewhere. Data center could be, we just coined the concept of a data center, micro, nano, and pico. A pico could be one rack itself. We are able to run, one of the customers, I said, one fairly large language model, we are able to run a rack, about a 2 kilowatt of power. So, as a country of diverse us, we need, different conditions, different languages, culture. A distributed model is the way to go. We need a large central model for certain things, but for our regional, we are a country of 1,000 districts, thousands of villages and taluks. A small taluk can do with a one rack, that's it, They're self-cooled, solar powered, you don't need any energy from the grid. It automatically can be autonomous, AI-driven, and that's probably one of the way to go in this country.
Urmi?
Thank you so much for your question. I would definitely add that anything that is predictive is never 100% the word of God. And what we can basically do is to make it as accurate as possible, pulling it from making data sources as integrative as possible in order to give you the most accurate results. Currently, there are schemes running, for example, I think there's predictive farming practices that some universities are attached to. They do send the most accurate data that they can to farmers in order to influence their cropping patterns. So what our technology does is make that a lot more accurate by creating these data sets, pulling together different data sets and making the process a lot more integrative. So it's about giving you better tools, incrementally improving the kind of technology that you have.
So I'll just add to that. I'm not an expert on the agri side, which Urmi talked about, sir. But in case I can give you an example from business AI side of it. So a very simple example, which will probably put things into perspective. These local data sets are also important and getting inbuilt into that. So if an AI solution that SAP may have for, let's say, the steel sector would not be the same that we would have, say, for confectionery sector. Because those set of data which are unique to confectionery will be utilized over there, the ones which are unique to steel. So there is an element of small building blocks actually coming up. You can probably restrict that. I fully agree with you that, large, probably, and why us? The whole Indian Meteorological Department is actually, their prediction is going for a 6 because of very localized this thing. So, I mean, you have a point definitely over there, but that's how probably it's getting built up. And it's a work in progress. It's never one day.
Srinivas, quickly, last question.
Yeah. Next question, I think somebody asked about ROI data center, just like 5G and 4G. What I've seen, you look at today, unfortunately, a lot of data center people think it's a real estate play. You build large ones. Historically, data center people, the ROI has been 7 to 8 years, unfortunately so. Except the hyperscalers, nobody had made money. So we looked at reinventing data centers, micro data centers, the ROI is just 2 years. You don't need massive one. You can build a micro and modular one, 2 years with ROI, because your operational costs are significantly lower. You run on solar power, you don't use water. So we have seen ROI of just 2 years for a micro data center.
Thank you, and I think we are right on time. Thank you so much, everyone, for this engaging and insightful conversation, and thank you to the audience for patiently listening to us. Thank you.